Today on Trucks, we'll bring back Project Sport Sierra. This time, we'll take you step by step through the installation of a lowering kit. After that, we'll take you for a ride in a big rig that pumps out a ground-pounding 35,000 horsepower. Then it's back to the shop for the first of a 3-week series that'll show you how to lay down a show-quality paint job. That's all today on Trucks.
Welcome to this week's show, everybody. A few weeks ago, we introduced Project Sport Sierra, and as promised, we took our 99 GMC to the paint booth and shot all the pieces we installed the last time you saw our extended cab in the truck shop.
Now, if you missed the introduction of Project Sport Sierra, here's what we've done so far. Put on a billet grill from Hunter's Custom Automotive, a Ram-style good hood from Keystone Restyling Products. We topped off the sport truck with a smoothster tonneau cover from California Customs, added an aero wing also from Keystone, and topped everything off with a Sir Michael steel roll pan.
Of course, now that Project Sport Sierra is fully clothed, we need to give it the proper stance. We're going to give our ride a 3/4 drop with DJM's Level 1 lowering kit. The front end drop is going to come entirely from these lower control arms that have the pivot bushings, sleeves, and ball joints already installed. The kit also comes with sway bar end lengths and gas shocks.
Once we have this truck lowered, there is no way we're leaving those stock weenies on there. Check out these Toyo Proxys STs. Now this is a performance tire designed especially for a light truck with a tall sidewall. We've wrapped those around these cool, inky 17-inch wheels. That'll give us the sport truck look that we're after.
The front suspension on all 99 GM trucks has been totally redesigned, and DJM was one of the first companies to get their hands on the brand new half-ton pickup. What they discovered is that a new lower control arm could drop things as much as 5 inches and still keep the stock coil springs and alignment specs.
Now before we can take the suspension apart, I'm going to take out the shocks and loosen these upper and lower control arm bolts. Now that allows everything to rotate real nice, makes disassembly much easier. We're going to take off the tie rod ends, the sway bar end links, and then loosen the nut of the lower ball joint, but don't take it off.
Now we need to slide the jack under the lower control arm to support it. On all the new GMs, the ball joint points downward, so we need to raise the jack to compress the spring. Then we can pry the ball joint loose. Next, you'll want to slowly lower the jack to release the coil spring. Now, I know we keep harping on this, but it's real important. A compressed spring is very dangerous, so under no circumstances should you ever try to pry one loose. On our application, we had to use a spring compressor to free it up.
Finally, unbolt the lower control arm and remove it. Now granted, these old pieces look a lot bigger than the new stuff, but these are actually much stronger and they eliminate tire clearance problems. Now a good tip when you install these is take a little bit of grease, wipe it around these bushings.
On the level 2 and 3 kit by DJM, you have to replace the bump stop. We don't need to do that on the level 1 kit because it's already short enough.
Well, it looks like you're ready for this.
Yeah, let's slide it in there.
All right.
A little lower there. There we go. Perfect.
Now we only need to make one modification, and that's to slightly enlarge the hole of the spindle with a supplied grinding stone. Now we're not going to change the taper, we're just going to open the hole up a little bit so the threads of the new ball joint will slide right through.
Now we can slide the stock spring back in place. Don't forget the rubber pad on top. Also, don't forget to slide the bolt for the spring compressor through the top shock hole. Then we can slide a jack under the lower control arm and reconnect the spindle. After that, you can go ahead and release the spring compressor.
Now that the arms are in, we can mount the sway bar. You can see the new piece is considerably shorter than the stocker. That's because the new mounting point on the arm is a lot closer to the end of the sway bar. Before you hook up your tie rod ends, it's a good idea to knock this nut loose and then roll it in about 3 turns. That way your alignment won't be totally out of whack. Now, this is only good enough to get you to an alignment shop. Make sure that you have it professionally aligned when you're done.
The last thing we need to do to get our 3-inch drop in the front is install the gas shocks. Only tighten the top nut until the rubber bushing flares out even with the washer.
Make one last check to make sure all your bolts are tight. It's easy to forget those control arms. After that, we're done with the front. We can start on the rear.
But before we do, we need to pay some bills. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Later on Trucks, we'll make a run with a father-son team that chases down airplanes in their big rig. But up first, we're going to finish putting the slam on Project Sport Sierra.
Welcome back to the shop. Now that we've got a 3-inch drop on the front of Project Sport Sierra, we're going to slam the rear 4 inches. Now, we can get that kind of a drop without using a flip kit or notching the frame. I can see right now we're going to have to drain this gas tank and remove it. That'll make things a lot easier.
While Stacey gets started on the disassembly, I'll go ahead and show you the hardware we're going to use on the business end. The Level 1 kit by DJM comes with longer spring shackles and hangers, bump stops, and of course brand new gas shocks. Our 3/4 drop on Project Sport Sierra is only going to run about $450.
I'm going to get started on the rear by unbolting the shocks. Now, you heard me mention a flip kit earlier. Let me explain to you what that is. It's where you take the axle and move it from below the leaf spring, put it up on top. Now, you can get up to 7 inches of drop out of a flip kit, but it's not quite that easy. It takes special brackets as well as a frame notch so the axle doesn't come up and hit the frame. These are important things to remember if you're considering an extreme drop.
Before we can take the shackle bolts off, we need to get some support under the pumpkin so we don't have to dance with the axle. What you need to do here is lift the jack until the weight is off the leaf spring. Then you can remove the stock shackle. Be careful when doing this because the rear spring can move on you and grab a few fingers. As you can see, the new hardware is a lot longer than the stock piece and has 2 holes. The hole farthest from the bushing here is going to give you the most drop, and that's exactly what we're after.
Now we come to the worst part of this project, and that's getting these front hangers off. The rivet needs to come out so we can use the holes to bolt on the new bracket. Now, you can do this a few different ways. You can use a grinder, a drill, or an air chisel. You'll even be tempted to use explosives, but that's not an option. Whatever you use, make sure you allow yourself a couple hours and keep reminding yourself how good the truck's going to look when you're done with the project.
After you clear that hurdle, the rest of the project is pretty much straight bolt-on. And that's where I come in.
You dog.
The new hardware is shorter than stock and relocates the front of the leaf spring, which is going to give us our 4-inch slam in the rear. DJM also provides a shock extender for the right side that allows the shock to perform at a much better angle. Just slide the bracket over the factory mount and bolt it in place. Then you can use the extender as a guide to drill through the factory mount. After that, slap on the bump stops and the shocks, and we're almost done in the rear.
Almost, but not quite. Unfortunately, on the extended cab, we need to raise this carrier bearing to prevent any drive shaft vibration. Now, the only way to do this properly is to cut the bracket, raise it, and re-weld it. There's no doubt a 3/4 drop looks great on our truck, The best part is we still have a functional vehicle that we can tow our toys with.
But before we hook it up to a trailer, we need to get to an alignment shop, which is always important whenever you do any kind of suspension work. We need to take a break right now, but the next time you see Project Sport Sierra, we're going to address some sound issues with a new exhaust and stereo system. This is perfect.
That came out great.
Up next is a shocking display of raw power. It's a Peterbilt that's motivated by 3 jet engines.
I can't wait to drop the hammer on this thing.
It's going to be awesome. Thanks for staying with us. You know, when most of us think about an outing with our dad, it usually means a trip to the ballpark or some hunting and fishing. The key phrase here is most of us. Up next, we're going to show you a father-son team that's playing way outside those lines. Welcome to the world of Les and Kent Shockley. These guys are putting a whole new twist on father-son outings. Wait a minute, did I say twist? What I really meant was twisted, because when the Shockleys do a little male bonding, it involves 36,000 horsepower and a Peterbilt big rig that goes by the name of Shockwave.
My oldest boy actually talked me into building a twin-engine jet truck. That's originally what we were going to build here. And after we got 2 engines in it, I thought, oh, that thing doesn't look all that special because the tires and wheels more or less hid the engine. So I had a spare engine sitting in the shop. I set it on top, and I looked at it, and I went, well, that's it. That's awesome. We'll just go with 3 engines, and that's how it actually got created.
They come off of a T-2A Buckeye, they call it, which is a Navy trainer fighter aircraft, one engine powered a 20,000-pound airplane. We build our own afterburners, produce twice the power with 1 engine, plus we put 3 of them on this 7,000-pound truck. So this thing's got about a 3-to-1 power to weight ratio. It's a 7,000-pound hot rod, so it's a little sluggish getting off the line, but it still runs good for what it is.
In 1996, after 37 years of racing that produced 3 national jet car championships, Les turned over the weekly driving chores to his son Kent, who spends the majority of his time chasing down airplanes.
80% of our business is air shows, and what we do there is we sit still with the engines wound up, no burner fuel. The aircraft will come in at 200 miles an hour. My crewman will wind me up, tell me when to turn the burner fuel on and launch me, and we'll chase a 200-mile-an-hour airplane down. We normally run this thing 300 miles an hour on a airstrip. Obviously, it's so big and heavy it won't do that on a drag strip. It won't compete with Force or anybody like that, but it'll still run 300.
376 miles an hour to be exact, making Shockwave the fastest jet truck on the planet. And with enough power to accelerate at 3 Gs vertical, it's nearly twice as fast as the space shuttle.
There's a lot to do in there as far as controls, buttons, switches, gauges to watch, things like that, but as far as the actual control of the vehicle, it's the most stable piece I've ever been in.
Okay, so it's really, really fast and easy to handle. But come on, how do you stop 7,000 pounds going 300 plus?
We got 6-wheel disc brakes. We use 2 16-foot ring slots, parachutes to stop it. If those fail, we have 2 more in the backup can. So we carry 4 chutes, 6 brakes, and if that don't work, we can stick our foot out the door and Fred Flintstone this thing to a stop.
The whole purpose of this truck is for the enjoyment of the spectator. We've just done everything that we can possibly think of on this thing to entertain people and give them something they'll never forget.
Well, let's see. A semi that's motivated by 3 J34 Pratt & Whitney jet engines that gulp down 120 gallons of diesel fuel per run? Yeah, I'd say that's pretty unforgettable.
Coming up next on Trucks, we'll show you how to prep your project for a show-quality paint job.
Welcome back to Trucks. Now we're going to deal with the most feared area for the do-it-yourselfer, and that's paint and body work. Now, nothing makes a bigger statement than having a killer paint job, but nothing will kill your bank account quicker than having somebody do it for you.
So in the next 3 weeks, we're going to take you through some basic steps that'll show you what's involved in doing a great paint job without breaking the bank. Also, keep in mind, if you're willing to put in the time, you can overcome your lack of experience in this area.
Now, if your truck's wearing its original paint and that's in good shape, you can usually get by with just scuffing it and shooting a new color over it. This generally won't make the paint too thick, which of course is a no-no because that makes it prone to cracking. But if it's ever been refinished or you're changing the color, we strongly recommend that you get Mel to strip it.
Oh, you're all heart, pal. You can do this with chemicals, a sander, or you can take it somewhere to have it dipped. We like to use the first two because you can do it in your driveway and you don't have to tear your truck apart. When using a chemical stripper, safety is obviously important as well as adequate ventilation. Just put the stripper on, let it work for a few minutes, then scrape it off. Now, depending on the thickness of the paint, you may have to repeat this process. It's also real important to dispose of the waste properly because it's highly caustic. Now, if you're going to go the chemical route, make sure you wipe it down good to neutralize the acid. That way you won't end up with bubbles in your finished paint work.
Another option is to use a sander. Now, this basically rips the paint off of the surface and can destroy the metal if you use too thick of a grit. This special pad by the Eastwood Company leaves a really nice scuffed finish. It's great to put primer on. It also eliminates excessive heat, which causes warpage. And as you can see, it's a whole lot quicker than using chemicals. The only problem with this method is it's hard to get into little corners and your shop will be covered in dust. If you decide to do it this way, you have to wear a particle mask.
No matter what you choose to do, you're gonna have a mess on your hands. But after you've stripped your project, then you can assess what needs to be done next, whether it's welding in a rust hole or using some body filler. In the weeks to come, we'll show you all the steps you need to know to lay down your own signature paint job.
When you have a major spill of oil, gasoline, or antifreeze, most guys run for a big old handful of shop towels. Problem is, they don't do a very good job. Now, the answer could be as close as your local pet store. I'm not kidding, it's called cat litter. Just pour it on the spill and let it absorb. And then sweep it up. And having a little extra cat litter around the shop is always a big relief to the neighborhood cats.
American Bantam went out of business in 1956, but in late 1939 they built a small go-anywhere four-wheel drive vehicle that hit the road in 1940 as the original Jeep.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
One of the biggest problems with restoring an old truck or customizing a new one is what to do with the steering column. You used to have to hunt down the junkyards hoping to find one that would fit and then pray that somehow, just somehow, the wiring would hook up. Fortunately, those days are over thanks to I Did It steering columns. They're available in paintable steel chrome or polished aluminum for standard shift or automatic. And best of all, they come totally pre-wired. Steer yourself in the right direction with an I Did It steering column.
Performance enthusiasts on the street, strip, and off-road know that you gotta have low gears if you're gonna get off the starting line or crawl those big rocks. The problem is, low gears take a toll in the form of bad gas mileage, engine wear, and forget about driving home on the interstate. Well, Richmond has the answer with their 6-speed overdrive transmission. This transmission, with a 308 gear in the rear, will have the same low-end grunt as a 456, and you can still drive home on the interstate. Bottom line, leave your gears alone, change to a 6-speed Richmond for about $2,800.
Finally today, if you drive a Dodge Ram diesel pickup, your stock fan could be pulling up to 25 horsepower from your motor, which is a lot when you consider the fan only needs to operate about 10% of the time. The Horton Corsair on-off fan clutch engages the fan only when necessary with a thermal switch in the engine block that automatically senses changes in your coolant. It'll also help your gas mileage and performance. Keep things cool with a Horton Corsair for about $700. That's going to do it for Truck Gear. Here's a preview of next week's show.
We'll finish up Project Outdoorsman by bolting on a brush guard and removable winch. After that, it's time to find out if the totally redesigned Jeep Grand Cherokee for $19.99 is everything it's cracked up to be, on-road and off. Then it's back to the shop for week 2 of Paint Tech. We've already shown you how to prep your project. Next week, we'll show you how to use filler and lay down primer. That's all next week on Trucks.
All right, Stacey, it's time to say goodbye this week, but I want to do something different. We always say the same thing. Not that there's anything wrong with what we say necessarily. I mean, how many ways can you say goodbye, right? That's not the kind of show.
Trucks is an RTM production.